My name is Ava Mitchell, 42 years old, Senior Electrical Systems Engineer for a renewable energy research company in Oregon. If you met me today, you'd think I'm calm, rational, precise. But 2 years ago, my entire life split open like cracked glass. And it began with a woman named Melanie Hartwell, the new HOA compliance director. The woman who destroyed my peace, drained my power, and turned me into someone I never expected to become. But to explain how she pushed me that far, I need to start at the beginning, the day she arrived in our neighborhood with her clipboard, her perfect hair, and her poisonous smile. 4 years earlier, I lost my husband Jason in a mountain rescue accident, a sudden blizzard, a radio failure, a call from the sheriff's office that still echoes in my bones. The grief never disappeared. It just hardened into a shape I learned to carry. We had moved into Cedar Grove Estates because it was quiet, green, and wrapped by forest. Jason loved the outdoors. I loved the space to finally build our dream, a 9-kilowatt solar system we designed together on our garage roof. It was our project, our legacy, our thing. After he died, I finished it alone. Every screw, every cable, every panel. It became the one place in my life that still felt like us. And it powered my home beautifully, my workshop tools, my office equipment. My electric bill dropped from $180 to around $38 a month. The solar panels weren't just technology. They were memory. They were love. And for a long time, they kept me functional. The neighborhood gossip said she was divorced, rich from generational money, and obsessed with order. Her late father ran a private security firm, and she liked to mention that he didn't tolerate rule breakers. She arrived in our neighborhood like a storm wearing lipstick. And the first time I saw her, she was standing in my driveway as if she owned it, clipboard tucked under her arm, measuring wheel in her hand. Designer sunglasses masking her eyes. "What exactly are you doing?" I asked, stepping out of my truck. She didn't move, didn't flinch. She simply ran her red nails along my garage walls as if inspecting it. "Routine compliance assessment," she said with a cold smile. "You never filed Form 7B for alternative energy modifications." Form 7B wasn't real. At least not until she made it real. I filed everything required by the HOA when the panels were installed. I replied, "Not with me," she said sharply, "and I'm the new compliance director. That means everything runs through my desk now." She waved her hand like she was brushing away dust. "Send those forms by the end of the week. Otherwise, penalties begin." She walked away before I could even respond. That was the first crack, but not the last. The following month, my utility bill arrived, $231.74. I blinked so many times I thought I was reading it wrong. I checked again. Nope, $231. My solar system had never let my bill go above $60, not even in deep winter. Something was horribly off. I went outside, stared at my panels, checked every inverter and junction box. Everything looked fine. But the moment I opened my power usage app, my blood turned cold. Nighttime consumption, 6.1 kilowatt, 7.3 kilowatt, 9.2 kilowatt, every night. For reference, my entire house running at full load uses around 2.5 kilowatts. This wasn't normal. This wasn't accidental. This was theft. But from who? One night, around 1:30 a.m., I walked outside with flashlight. The cold air burned my lungs. The only sounds were crickets and a deep electrical hum I didn't recognize. I turned my head slowly and froze. Across the narrow tree line that separated my home from my neighbor's house, a charging cable ran through the bushes. Bright orange, thick, industrial grade. It disappeared behind the fence into someone's yard, a yard newly occupied by Melanie Hartwell. My heart sank. No, 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 no. She wasn't just the HOA director. She was my next-door neighbor. I stepped closer, touched the cable. Warm, very warm. Someone was drawing heavy current straight from my outdoor GFCI outlet, located on the side of my garage, the same side facing Melanie's property. I followed the hum, peeked through the hedge, and saw her car, a pearly white Lucid Air Grand Touring, a $120,000 electric luxury car, the kind only someone thirsty for prestige would buy. And there it was, plugged into MY power. Ava Mitchell, electrical engineer, widow, woman who designed the solar system as a love letter to her husband, now financing Melanie's elite luxury lifestyle at 1:30 a.m. I felt dizzy. My hands shook. I could barely breathe. I whispered to myself through clenched teeth, "You're stealing Jason's power from his panels." Tears burned my eyes, but it wasn't sadness. It was grief turning into anger, the kind that rises slow, hot, and unstoppable. I stepped back, heart pounding, and filmed the whole setup, the cable, the connection, the drain on my meter. I went inside, sat at my kitchen table, looked at the bill, looked at the footage, looked at the cable again through the window. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't confusion. This was deliberate theft. The confrontation. At 10 a.m. the next morning, I marched straight to her door. She answered instantly, almost like she was expecting me. "Ava, good morning," she chirped, too cheerful. Fake cheerful. "We need to talk," I said firmly. Her smile barely twitched. "Of course. Step onto the porch. My floors are being polished." I forced the words out. "You're stealing my electricity." She didn't react, didn't flinch, didn't deny it. She simply pressed her lips together, then said, "No, we are sharing electricity." My stomach dropped. What the hell does that mean? She lifted her clipboard, her weapon of choice. "I authorize a temporary community charging initiative for all EV owners. Solar homes contribute. Non-solar homes benefit. It's sustainable living." "Melanie, you can't authorize that. You're not the board." "Oh, but I am," she said lightly. "Acting board president until elections next spring." "That's not how board succession works." "Well," she sighed dramatically, "the previous president resigned unexpectedly. Stress, you know? Poor thing." I felt sick. "And you didn't tell me? You didn't ask me? You didn't inform anyone on this street?" "I posted it on the HOA announcements board," she replied casually. "There is no announcements board." "There is now," she said, tapping her nails on her clipboard. "You installed an entire charging station on my outdoor outlet," I said, my voice cracking with disbelief and fury. "That is theft. That is criminal." Her smile finally faded, replaced by something colder, sharper, like a blade wrapped in sugar. "Oh, Ava, sweetheart," she said quietly, "if you go around calling it theft, you're going to sound unstable. And unstable people often violate HOA safety codes without even realizing." My heart slammed in my chest. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying," she stepped closer, her perfume too sweet, too thick, too choking. "If you make trouble, I will find more violations on your property than you can possibly afford to fix." I swallowed hard. She leaned even closer. "And if I find enough violations, the board can forcibly fine you." A pause. "Or remove your panels." Her smile returning like poison blooming. "It would be such a shame to lose Jason's little project, wouldn't it?" Something in me broke. Something deep. Something sacred. Something that still belonged to him. She whispered, "Now be a good neighbor and keep contributing." I felt my leg shaking. I walked away, not because I was scared, but because if I stayed, I might have done something I couldn't take back. Inside my house, I collapsed onto the floor, shaking, crying. She was threatening his panels. Our panels. Our legacy. That was the moment I knew. This wasn't about electricity. It was about control. About dominance. About Melanie's obsession with power, literally and figuratively. And she picked the wrong engineer. The wrong widow. The wrong woman with nothing left to lose. Because I was going to expose her. I was going to protect Jason's memory. And I was going to take back every what she had stolen. Even if I had to burn her empire of lies down, one cable at a time. The night after Melanie threatened me, I didn't sleep. Not a minute. I sat at the kitchen table with the lights off, staring at the blinking blue LED on my battery monitor, watching the numbers rise and fall like my heartbeat. Every what she stole felt like she was scraping another memory of Jason away from me. I couldn't let that happen. Not again. Around 4:12 a.m., I went outside to breathe. The morning air was so cold it stung my nose. Fog rolled low across the grass. The street lights cast long shadows across the houses. Then I saw it again. That humming glow from the tree line. Melanie's lucid air was charging. Again, like it always did between 1 a.m. and sunrise. And every electron was coming from Jason's panels. A lump rose in my throat. Anger, pain, a grief that sharpened instead of fading. I closed my eyes. "This ends tonight," I whispered. As an engineer, my instincts kicked in. Emotion alone doesn't win battles. Data does. I went into my workshop, pulled out my industrial power analyzer, the same one Jason and I used when we first tested our inverter. I connected the clamps to the outdoor power line feeding toward the fence. At 4:27 a.m., the numbers flashed. Continuous draw, 7.4 kilowatts. Peak, 11.6 kilowatts. Humidity, high. Voltage drop, unstable. This wasn't just charging. This was systematic draining. A full EV fast mode pool. I recorded everything. Photographs, readings, real-time graphs, thermal signatures, footage of the cable in use. Then I uploaded all of it to a cloud drive labeled, "If anything happens to me." Just in case. By 9 a.m., sunlight hit the panels. My hands were shaking from lack of sleep or fury. I didn't know. But I marched to Melanie's door again. When she opened it, she didn't even pretend to be innocent. "Oh, Ava," she said condescendingly. "So early? Didn't sleep well. I have proof you're stealing my electricity. And I have proof you're violating HOA page 14, section 3, subpoint C, unauthorized solar modifications. That doesn't exist." "It does now." My voice rose. "You can't just invent rules." Her smile stretched. "Look around. Ava, I already have." It was true. A new sign near the mailboxes read, "Community Energy Sharing Initiative, authorized by HOA President Melanie Hartwell." "President? You forged your way into power," I said quietly. "And you're becoming hysterical," she replied, stepping closer, "which is dangerous for someone responsible for high-voltage equipment." It felt like she slapped me. My breath hitched. She leaned in, lowering her voice. "You keep pushing me. I'll shut down your solar system permanently. Safety violations, structural hazards, non-compliance." I felt my knees weaken. "You wouldn't." "Oh, sweetheart." Her eyes glittered with cruelty. "Watch me." Then she shut the door in my face, and I broke, right there on her porch. Tears, shaking, humiliation burning deep inside me. I walked home like a ghost, and when I got inside, I finally stopped crying, because something snapped. Something strong. Something dangerous. Something ready. I knew exactly what I needed to do. First step, block access. But not obviously. Not in a way Melanie could file a complaint about. I unscrewed the outlet cover on the side of my house, rewired it internally so it only delivered 0.5 amps, enough to appear active, but utterly useless at charging. When Melanie tried to steal power that night, the car would barely sip a trickle. No more midnight draining. But that wasn't enough. She would escalate, so I needed to be ready. At 1:43 a.m., I was watching from my darkened window when I heard her. Footsteps, leaves crunching, her silhouette moving along the fence line. She approached the cable, plugged it in, and walked away. 2 minutes later, her lucid air screen flashed. "Charging fault, insufficient power supply." I saw her return, standing in her driveway, hands on her hips. She checked the cable, reset it, tried again. Fault. Again. Fault. Again. Fault. I almost smiled. But then she turned toward my house and stared. Long, silent, cold, like she knew, like she sensed I had done something. My stomach tightened. She walked away, slowly, with purpose, and I felt a chill go down my spine. The next morning, I found 3 envelopes taped to my front door, bright red, HOA stamped. I ripped them open. Violation number 1. Unauthorized wiring visible from the street. I had no such wiring. Violation number 2. Solar panels improperly aligned. They were aligned with laser precision. Violation number 3. Potential fire hazard. Inspection mandatory within 48 hours. This was a real threat. My heart pounded so hard I felt dizzy. If she forced an inspection, she could shut down my entire system. Jason's system. Our legacy. My throat tightened. This wasn't about electricity anymore. This was war. I called the actual HOA president, a kind older man named Raymond Knox, who had always respected my solar work. He sounded exhausted. "Ava, Melanie filed an internal override and took the presidency when I resigned." "You resigned?" "I didn't." His voice lowered. "She submitted paperwork saying I medically stepped down due to stress." "Oh my God." "Ava, she's dangerous. Be careful." I hung up and sat on the floor. Melanie forged documents. She faked board votes. She set up fake initiatives. And she was getting away with all of it, because no one else fought back. But I would. That evening, I walked outside to breathe. But something felt off. A cold dread crept up my spine. I looked up at my roof, and my heart dropped. One of my solar panel strings, the one closest to Melanie's property line, was tilted, wrong angle, loose, dangerously loose. I climbed the ladder immediately. When I reached it, I froze. Someone had unscrewed the mounting bolts. 4 of them. Deliberately. Professionally. A panel on a roof doesn't loosen by accident. Not 4 bolts. Not that specific panel. I felt sick. Nauseous. Furious. She sabotaged my system. She sabotaged Jason's system. And she did it at night while I slept. A rage came over me I can't explain. I tightened the bolt so hard my hands bled. Wind shook the trees as if echoing my anger. Then I saw it. Something glinting near the gutter. I reached for it. My fingertips touched metal. A broken nail. Fake acrylic. Red. The same exact red as Melanie's. I held it in my hand. Proof. Cold. Metallic. Sharp. My heart thundered. She touched my roof. I whispered. She climbed onto my house and touched its panels. That was it. Breaking point. No turning back. At 2:16 a.m., I sat at my kitchen table with Jason's old engineering notebook open. He had scribbled formulas and sketches from when we first dreamed about going off-grid. I touched the page where his handwriting curved, gentle and neat. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I can't let her take this from us." I looked up at the window. Melanie's house was dark, calm, deceptively calm. She thought she won. She thought I would break. She thought I would surrender. But she forgot something important. I wasn't just a widow. I was an engineer. And an engineer under pressure becomes something very precise, very sharp, and very unstoppable. Because for the first time since Jason died, I felt awake. I felt fierce. I felt alive. And I knew exactly what my next step would be. Not revenge yet. Not the final trap yet. But the first real strike. The one she would never see coming. The one that would tip the balance. Because Melanie took my power. Now I was going to take something from her. Something she valued far more. Control. For the first time in months, the morning felt different. Not peaceful. No. Not calm. But charged. Like the moment before lightning hits a tree. I woke up with my jaw clenched, my muscles stiff, and my heart already beating too fast. The memory of the loose solar bolts, the acrylic nail, the violation letters, they played in my mind like a horror movie on loop. Melanie had crossed a line, and I wasn't afraid anymore. She thought I would bend. She didn't realize I'd rather break, and cut her with the pieces. At 8:12 a.m., I got an email. Mandatory HOA safety inspection. Scheduled. Tomorrow, 2 p.m. Failure to comply equals heavy fines plus 4 shutdown. My stomach clenched. She wasn't wasting time. She wanted my panels gone. She wanted to erase Jason. She wanted to win. But I wasn't going to let some neighborhood tyrant dismantle the only thing left of my husband. So I went outside, climbed the ladder again, and carefully rechecked every panel, every bolt, every junction box. I tightened, cleaned, recalibrated, all with tears slowly rolling down my cheeks. I whispered as I worked, "I won't let her take you from me too, Jason." Then I climbed down, and Melanie was standing in my driveway, clipboard in hand, sunglasses on, that smug smile fixed on her lips like paint. She didn't even blink when our eyes met. Doing last-minute repairs, she asked sweetly. "No," I said, wiping sweat from my forehead. "Just making sure everything is in perfect shape for the inspection." "Oh, Ava," she sighed dramatically. "You can't polish over structural deficiencies." My chest tightened. "There are no deficiencies." "There will be," she said softly. Her voice felt like a knife sliding between ribs. "My inspector has a good eye, especially when I tell him where to look." My hands curled into fists. "You loosened my bolts." A slow smirk spread across her face. "Prove it," she toned, her heels clicking sharply on my driveway. "And Ava," she glanced back over her shoulder, "you should get some rest. You look tired. Wouldn't want the inspector to think you're unstable." Then she walked away. By noon, I needed air, not just a walk. I needed escape. The forest behind Cedar Grove had always been Jason's favorite place. He used to say, "Trees are honest, Ava. They don't pretend." So I stepped under the green canopy, where sunlight filtered through leaves in gentle beams, and I finally let myself breathe. For a moment, I felt him beside me, not literally, but in the way grief sometimes reaches out and squeezes your heart gently instead of crushing it. I sat on a fallen log and whispered, "Tell me what to do." A breeze brushed my cheek, and in that moment, I remembered something Jason always said when he worked. If someone attacks your system, you redesign the system. Not destroy, not attack back, redesign. But I wasn't ready for the final redesign yet. First, I needed a strategic advantage. Something Melanie didn't expect. Something she couldn't control. Something that would flip the power dynamic. For good. And then it hit me. A brilliant, dangerous, perfect idea. I stood up, and I didn't walk home. I ran. At 3:47 p.m., I knocked on a door I hadn't knocked on in 2 years. It belonged to Elijah Barnes, retired electrical inspector, widower, former friend of Jason's, and the most stubborn man in Cedar Grove. He opened the door with a confused look. "Ava, you okay?" I swallowed hard. "I need help. And I need honesty. Your kind of honesty." That softened him immediately. "Come in," he said. His home smelled like cedar, books, and old memories. He poured tea and sat across from me. "What happened?" I told him everything. Every detail. Every bolt. Every violation letter. Every stolen what. Every threat. Every sabotage. He listened silently, jaw tightening, eyes narrowing. Then he slammed his cup down. "That woman is going to cause a fire," he growled. "She's messing with dangerous equipment she doesn't understand." "I know. And she's using HOA authority she doesn't legally have." "I know. And she's targeting you intentionally." "I know." Elijah leaned forward. "Ava, if you let her shut down your system, she'll bleed you dry. Legal fees, fines, penalties. She won't stop." "I know, Elijah." He nodded slowly, eyes dark. "And you want to fight back?" "Yes." He stood up, walked to his office, and returned with an old metal toolbox. "This," he said, placing it in front of me, "is what your husband would have used." I opened it slowly. Inside were a thermal scanner, a circuit integrity tester, a voltage event recorder, and a small hard drive labeled "Evidence Protected." My breath caught. "Elijah, this is yours," he said firmly. "Jason wanted you to have it someday." Tears at my cheeks. Slow, silent, painful. "Ava," Elijah continued, softening, "that inspection tomorrow? Let me handle it." "You can't." "I can. I may be retired, but I'm still state certified, and the board still respects me. If Melanie is bringing a corrupt inspector, I'll be the counterweight." My shoulders finally relaxed, just an inch. A breath escaped me. Not relief, not comfort, but the first hint of hope. "Thank you," I whispered. "No," he said. "Don't thank me yet. Tomorrow is going to be a war." At 10:42 p.m., I stepped outside to secure my equipment before the inspection. But something felt wrong. A cold stillness. A silence that didn't belong. A heaviness in the air. And then I saw it. My garage side outlet, the one Melanie used, was ripped open. Wires exposed. Covers smashed. Internal circuits torn and dangling. My throat tightened. This wasn't normal. This wasn't accidental. This wasn't sabotage. It was rage. Someone had destroyed it violently. And embedded in the cracked plastic was something that made my stomach drop. A heel mark. A designer heel. Red sole. Melanie's. I backed away, shaking. She didn't want electricity anymore. She wanted escalation. She wanted destruction. She wanted me broken. Inside the house, I stood at the window, staring into the dark tree line between our houses. She was out there somewhere, watching, waiting, breathing like a predator in tall grass. Then my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Tomorrow, everything ends. Sleep well, Ava." My blood ran cold. She wasn't inspecting my panels. She was targeting me. And that message wasn't a threat. It was a promise. One that would echo through every episode after this night. Because tomorrow, she wouldn't just attack my home. She would attack my life. And she had no idea the hell I was about to unleash in return. The morning of the inspection felt like stepping into a battlefield. I hadn't slept. My nerves were raw. Every part of me felt stretched thin, like one wrong move would snap something deep inside. At 1:07 p.m., I stood in my driveway, arms crossed tightly against my chest, watching the storm clouds form overhead. Jason used to say thunderstorms felt like the world holding its breath. Today, the whole neighborhood felt that way. Because everyone knew. Everyone had heard. Everyone had seen the damage to my outlet, the violation letters taped across my door, the arguments in the driveway. Cedar Grove Estates wasn't big. News traveled like wildfire. And they all knew that today's inspection wasn't an inspection. It was Melanie's attack, her final push, her endgame. But she wasn't ready for what I brought to the table. Because I didn't come alone. At exactly 2 p.m., two cars pulled up. A sleek black Mercedes, a dusty white pickup truck. Melanie stepped out of the Mercedes first. Red heels, perfect curls, clipboard in hand like a dagger. Behind her exited a tall, thin man with a briefcase, the so-called inspector. Or as Elijah had predicted, a puppet. Then Elijah stepped out of the pickup truck. Gray hair, thick mustache, heavy tool bag. His presence alone had more authority than anything Melanie could fabricate. He walked up calmly. "Afternoon," he said. Melanie's smile flickered the moment she saw him. "Oh, Elijah," she said tightly. "Didn't expect you." "Funny," Elijah replied. "I was about to say the same about your inspector." The man in the suit cleared his throat and stepped forward. "I'm here to conduct a safety evaluation on Ms. Mitchell's solar installation." "You're not certified for solar." Elijah cut him off, voice booming. "I checked your credentials this morning." The man froze. Melanie's smile twitched. "This is a private HOA matter," she snapped. "No," Elijah said firmly. "Solar inspections are governed by state law, and by law, a licensed PV specialist must be present." He held up his certification card. "Valid, active, unshakable," which means, Elijah continued, "I'm the inspector today, no exceptions." The crowd of neighbors murmured. Melanie's jaw clenched hard. She wasn't prepared for this. "Good." We climbed the ladder together, me, Elijah, and the silent crowd watching below. My hands shook as I pointed. The sabotage was here. Elijah crouched, examining the bolts. He whistled low under his breath. "These weren't loosened by weather," he said loudly. "These were deliberately tampered with." I swallowed. He turned to the crowd below and spoke louder. "This was done intentionally, and whoever did it risked causing a fire that could have burned 4 homes." Gasps, whispers, eyes shifting toward Melanie. She stood very still, like a predator trying not to move when spotted. I breathed in shakily. Then Elijah checked the wiring. "Oh my God," he muttered. "What?" I whispered. "The grounding rod has been scratched, deeply. This wasn't an accident either." He looked down at Melanie, voice shaking with fury. "This isn't vandalism. This is electrical sabotage. This could kill someone." The neighbors erupted into murmurs. Melanie shouted up, voice cracking. "You have no proof I did anything." Elijah lifted a small evidence bag. Inside it, the red acrylic nail. Her signature color. Her brand. Her mistake. "You dropped this on Ava's roof," Elijah said coldly. Melanie's face drained of color. For the first time, she looked afraid. Melanie stomped toward the ladder. "Give me that nail," she demanded, voice trembling. Elijah didn't move. "No, you can't prove that's mine." "Every woman on this street knows that color," Mrs. Harris shouted from the sidewalk. "Half the neighborhood saw you wearing them at the meeting last week," someone else added. Melanie's breathing grew erratic. Her hands shook. She jabbed her clipboard toward me. "This is your fault," she yelled. "You locked me out. You're unstable. You've been spying on me." I stepped down the last ladder rung and faced her. Calm, quiet, steady. "No, Melanie. I protected my home." She lunged forward and shoved me. Hard. I stumbled back. The crowd gasped. Elijah grabbed her arm instantly. "That's enough," he growled. "You just crossed into assault." Melanie ripped her arm away. "You're all turning against me," she shrieked, voice cracking completely. "I built this community. I set the rules. I kept order." She was unraveling, totally losing control. Then she screamed at the crowd. "You all need me." No one moved. No one agreed. No one supported her. Because the truth was visible now, clear as daylight. She didn't care about rules. She didn't care about safety. She cared about power. And she just lost all of it. Elijah opened his tool bag and pulled out a small device. A thermal log recorder. Jason's. Elijah handed it to me. I opened the display screen, and the crowd gasped again. Every night. Every 2 a.m. Every stolen watt. Every spike in usage. Every cable drain. All recorded. All stamped. All logged. All undeniable. I lifted it high. "This is 6 weeks of power theft," I said quietly but firmly. "From MY Home. From MY Panels. From MY Husband's legacy." My voice cracked on the last word. Melanie's face twisted. "This is an invasion of privacy," she shrieked. "You can't record my home." "Wasn't your home," I replied. "It was my outlet. You were on my property every night." The crowd murmured again. Someone whispered, "She's done." Another said, "She's dangerous." Another, "She could have killed Ava." Melanie spun around wildly. "You all hate me." No one answered. She screamed again. "This community needs me." Elijah stepped forward. "No," he said. "This community needs safety, integrity, honesty. You gave us none." Melanie's voice went hoarse. "You can't remove me. I am the HOA. Elijah smiled. Cold, controlled. You forged that paperwork. And I reported it this morning. Her eyes widened. Shock, rage, fear, all twisting inside her like a tornado. You what? She whispered. Turns out, Elijah said, the county clerk was very interested in your signature inconsistencies. Her face broke apart, like a mask cracking. You traitor. I'm protecting this neighborhood, Elijah replied softly. Melanie let out a piercing scream, raised her clipboard, and swung it at him. But Elijah caught her wrists instantly. You're under citizen detainment for assault and property endangerment. Her knees buckled. No, you can't. But it was already over. Someone in the crowd was calling the sheriff. Someone else was filming. Melanie sank to the ground, trembling, mascara streaking down her cheeks. She looked up at me, pure hatred burning through every tear. You, she whispered. This is all because of you. I met her eyes. No, I said softly. This is because of what you did. And for the first time, she looked small, pathetic, exposed, and powerless. The sheriff arrived within minutes. Melanie was handcuffed gently, but firmly. As she was led away, she screamed, You'll regret this, Ava. You will regret this. But no one looked afraid, because her grip on the neighborhood was broken. The spell was gone. The mask had fallen. I stood on the grass, shaking, heart pounding, tears burning behind my eyes. Elijah placed a steady hand on my shoulder. Ava, you're safe now. I nodded, unable to speak. Then I whispered, Thank you. But Elijah shook his head. No, he said. Thank Jason. He built the system that saved you. My throat tightened. Tears finally spilled, and I whispered into the wind. I miss you. The clouds finally broke overhead. A light drizzle fell. Not harsh, not cold. Soft, like a blessing. Like Jason touching my cheek. By evening, the HOA sent an official message. Effective immediately. Melanie Hartwell is suspended from all HOA duties pending investigation. Neighbors sent messages of support. Flowers appeared on my porch. People I barely knew apologized for staying silent. For the first time since Jason died, I didn't feel alone. And when I walked into my backyard, the panels shone in the orange sunset. Stable, secure, safe. And I whispered, this is only the beginning. Because Melanie was gone. But the war was only starting. She had allies. She had money. She had influence outside the HOA. And she wasn't done. Not by a long shot. For 3 days after Melanie's arrest, Cedar Grove felt different. Calmer, quieter, warmer somehow. Neighbors smiled at me. Cars drove slower past my driveway. People who once avoided me now waved. For the first time in months, I slept more than 4 hours. I drank coffee on the porch without checking the bushes for cameras or cables. I even walked barefoot in my backyard, something I hadn't done since the sabotage. There was a sweetness in the air, the kind that comes after a storm finally breaks. But storms don't always end. Sometimes, they restart from a different direction. On the 4th morning, I heard a gentle knock on my door. When I opened it, a young woman stood there, maybe 26, nervous posture, holding a folder so tightly it bent. She had freckles, brown curls, and wide, worried eyes. My stomach tightened. I didn't speak. She took a breath. I need to talk to you. It's important. I let her inside cautiously. She sat at the edge of the couch, knees bouncing, eyes darting to the door like she was afraid someone followed her. Ava, she said softly, I need to apologize for everything my sister did. But also, I need to warn you. Warn me. 2 words I didn't want to hear. What do you mean? I asked. Riley swallowed hard. You think she's done, but she's not. Melanie's worse than you know, and she's not going to walk away from this. A chill rolled across my skin like a cold hand. Riley, I said carefully, what exactly did she tell you? Riley's eyes filled with tears. She said, she's going to ruin you. Not just your home. Not just your panels. Your entire life. My breath went shallow. Riley opened the folder. Inside were printed email screenshots, Joy, documents, notes, a photo that made my heart stop. The photo was of my husband, Jason, taken from my public memorial post years ago. Below it, scribbled in Melanie's handwriting, her weakness. My hand started to tremble. Riley kept speaking in a whisper. She became obsessed with you, Ava, ever since the day she moved in. She hates strong women. She hates people who don't bow to her. But you. Riley shook her head. She hated you because you had something she didn't. A love story. A legacy. A purpose. My chest tightened painfully. She can't stand women who survive without permission, Riley said. Something in me broke open. Not fear. Something harder. Colder. Sharper. What else did she do? I asked. Riley breathed in shakily. She set something in motion before she was arrested, and she made sure it would continue even if she wasn't here. My heartbeat thundered. What did she set in motion? Riley reached into the folder and pulled out a thick envelope. Inside were dozens of printed forms, HOA forms, but not ones I'd ever seen before. Then I saw the header, Notice of Panel Removal, Emergency Safety Order, authorized by Hartwell Compliance Division, effective immediately. My blood went cold. They'll come to your house within 48 hours, Riley whispered. Not the HOA, not inspectors, not workers from the county. Then who? I breathed. Riley's voice cracked. Private contractors, on Melanie's payroll, men who don't ask questions, men who don't wait for permission. My breath stopped. She kept talking. They think your solar panels are part of a hazard system that needs emergency removal. They think you're unsafe. They think they are protecting the community. I felt dizzy. Riley leaned in. Ava, she created fake state documents, fake orders, fake signatures. She forged everything. My hands shook violently. She planned this for weeks, Riley whispered, and she made sure the operation wouldn't stop even if she got arrested. I felt the room spin. Do you understand? Riley whispered. In 2 days, armed contractors will come to your house to rip out Jason's solar panels by force. My stomach dropped. My world tilted. My breaths came too fast. Riley reached out and grabbed my hand. You have 48 hours to stop them. After Riley left, I sat alone on the floor, the folder beside me, the fake orders scattered around me, Jason's picture staring at me, and something inside me collapsed. Not loudly, not dramatically, quietly, like a beam snapping inside a foundation. A small sound, but catastrophic. I whispered into the empty room. Why does she hate me so much? The question shook out of my throat like a sob, because this wasn't about HOA rules, or electricity, or fines. This was personal, targeted, and now she had escalated into a different kind of war, a war where she wasn't even present anymore. Her revenge was automated, programmed, a machine she had built to destroy me. Even while she sat behind bars, I pressed a shaking hand against my mouth. Tears spilled over, one after another. I curled up against the kitchen cabinet and cried quietly, the kind of cry that hurts the stomach, the lungs, the spine, the kind of cry people do when they realize something terrifying. This wasn't over. This had barely begun. At 6:40 p.m., I finally stood, but I wasn't shaking anymore. I wasn't crying. I wasn't broken. I was changing, like metal hardening in fire. I washed my face, tied my hair back, locked every door, walked into Jason's workshop, and I pulled out his old engineering notebook, the same one he wrote ideas in when he dreamed of innovation, protection, security. I flipped to the page labeled, Fail-Safe Systems, Unauthorized Access Solutions. My tears dried, my jaw tightened, my hands steadied, because if Melanie wanted a war, she should have never picked an engineer. I stood in the middle of Jason's workshop and whispered, She's coming for our panels. My voice echoed softly against the tools and metal shelves. She wants to steal your legacy. I ran my hand over the notebook, but I won't let her. A long breath. Controlled, cold, strong. I'm done defending. Now I strike back. And that was the moment the story changed. The moment Ava Mitchell stopped surviving and started fighting. Because if Melanie Hartwell wanted a war through proxies, forged documents, and hired demolishers, then I would build something she never expected. Something she couldn't match. Something she couldn't stop. The beginning of my first engineer countersystem. One that would give Melanie a nightmare she'd never wake from. I woke up to the sound of engines. Heavy engines. Not cars. Not delivery vans. Engines with weight, like trucks carrying equipment. I shot up from the couch, heart pounding. I checked the time. 7:11 a.m. 12 hours earlier than the 48-hour deadline. They were early. Too early. I rushed to the window, and my blood turned to ice. 3 large utility trucks were parked directly across my driveway. White, unmarked, men in heavy gloves and gray uniforms stepping out. Contractors. Exactly what Riley warned me about. I whispered, No, you're early. My hands trembled as I watched them gather around the lead truck. One of them held a clipboard with the fake state orders. Another held a bolt cut to the size of my arm. A third carried a metal case, one used for forced electrical shutdown. My throat tightened. They were here to tear out Jason's panels, rip apart the last piece of him I had left. Without warning, without permission, without mercy. I moved fast. Shoes on, hair tied, jacket grabbed. I stepped out onto the porch just as the men approached my yard. The leader said, monotone and firm, We're here for an emergency hazard extraction order. Panel removal. Step aside. I stepped forward instead. My voice shook, but my feet didn't. You're trespassing. This is a forged order. He held up the paper. No, Mm. This comes from Hartwell Compliance Division. Hartwell doesn't exist. I snapped. She fabricated that agency. The man didn't blink. We aren't involved in HOA politics. We respond to hazard orders. This one is active. No, I said, chest tightening. You're not touching anything. He sighed. We don't want trouble, but we will complete the order. Move. I stood my ground. Go get a real police officer, or a real state inspector, or a real signature. One of the men stepped closer. You don't want this to get physical. Something inside me snapped hard. I stepped off my porch, walked right up to him, and looked him dead in the eyes. I buried my husband. I survived sabotage. I survived harassment. And I survived your employer's sister trying to ruin my life. My voice hardened. You think I'm scared of free contractors? He hesitated. The leader turned to his men. Proceed with removal. They moved toward my backyard. I sprinted past them, through the gate, straight to Jason's panels. Heart pounding, breath sharp, hands shaking. But I wasn't helpless. Because last night, I built a failsafe. On the back of Jason's largest panel, covered with a metal guard plate, was a new device I installed hours before. A small blinking module with a thermal sensor and acceleration sensor perimeter, alert and a siren connection. A simple system, quick to build, but smart. If the panels were touched without my manual disarm code, the siren would trigger. Loud, sharp, impossible to ignore. Not dangerous, not illegal, just enough to stop an authorized removal. As one contractor reached the first panel, I whispered, "Go ahead, try." He grabbed the frame. Beep! A deafening, piercing alarm exploded through the neighborhood. The contractor jumped back violently. What the? Residents poured out of houses instantly. Lights flipped on. Garage doors opened. People emerged barefoot, in robes, in slippers. Dozens of eyes. Witnesses. Exactly what Melanie didn't want. The leader shouted, "Disable that alarm." "You can't," I yelled over the sound. "It's password protected, and if you attempt to break the panel." I pointed at the small module. The alarm calls the sheriff department directly. The contractor froze. What? Fake confidence cracked. Good. I held up my phone. It already called them. And as if the universe wanted to confirm it, a siren sounded in the distance. Real ones. The sheriff was on his way. The men exchanged panicked glances. The leader tried again. "We have authority here." "You have fraud," I shouted back. "Forged documents. A fake compliance agency. An illegal entry onto private property." His jaw tensed. "We were hired." "By a woman under criminal investigation," I said. Whispers spread through the crowd. "She's talking about Melanie's case." "That order looks fake. These men aren't from the county. They don't even have badges." I'm recording all of this. Phones rose everywhere. Dozens. The contractors backed up an inch. Good. But then something happened. Something I didn't expect. One of the workers, the youngest one, glanced at me with a strange discomfort. Then he pulled out his phone. He scrolled, and then showed his screen to the leader. The color drained from the leader's face. The worker whispered loudly, "She got arrested 3 days ago. Boss. This woman we're working for, Melanie Hartwell, she's in custody." The leader's jaw dropped. "What?" "That wasn't in the file. It's online. It's everywhere." The worker turned to me. "You weren't lying." "No," I said quietly. "I wasn't." The worker turned back to his team. "We need to go. Now. We're being used." The leader swallowed. "Pack it up." The other two stared. "Seriously?" "Yes. We aren't touching those panels. Call the client and tell them the operation is terminated." One worker hesitated. "What if she doesn't accept that?" The leader looked at me, then at the angry crowd, then at the approaching sheriff. "She'll have to." They turned away, retreating. My knees nearly buckled with relief. But right before they reached their trucks, the leader's phone buzzed. He answered. "Yes, this is him." Pause. His face went pale. "Yes, the job's off. Your order isn't valid." A long silence. His jaw tightened. "I can't do that." "No, the sheriffs are already on their way." Another silence. He swallowed. "No, I'm not threatening you. I'm saying you hired us under false pretenses." Pause. His eyes widened. That's insane." A longer pause. Then he said the words that froze me. "No, we are not burning down her system. Goodbye." He hung up fast. I felt cold from the inside out. What did she say?" I asked. He shook his head, horrified. "You don't want to know." "I do." He hesitated, then answered. "She told me if we couldn't remove your panels, we should destroy them. By fire. My stomach twisted. Fire. She ordered arson. The contractor added quietly, and she said, if you happen to be home, that was acceptable collateral. A breath left my lungs in a painful shudder. Melanie didn't just want to sabotage my home. She wanted me gone. Literally. Dead. 3 patrol cars pulled up, lights flashing. The contractors raised their hands calmly. The sheriff approached me. Ava, what happened? Before I could speak, the leader stepped forward. Officer, we were hired using forged state documents. We didn't know. We're withdrawing. But you need to know something. The sheriff narrowed his eyes. What? The contractor pointed at me. You're a suspect. That woman, Melanie Hartwell, she just instructed us to commit arson, with a homeowner inside. The sheriff froze. Then his voice hardened to steel. Everyone, inside my car. Now. Drama rippled through the neighborhood. Melanie had officially crossed the final line. The line that wasn't just harassment, not just sabotage, not just fraud, attempted murder. When contractors left and the sheriff finished questioning me, I sat alone on my porch, exhausted, empty, still shaking, but alive. And then I felt it, a warm breeze, soft, gentle, like Jason's hand brushing my cheek. In my chest, something painful and beautiful rose. You're still protecting me, aren't you? I whispered. The panels glowed softly in the sunrise, silent, strong, unbroken, just like him, just like me. Then I wiped my cheeks, stood up, and whispered, okay, Melanie, you want to burn me down. A cold, determined fire lit inside me. Then I'll build a system that turns your whole world to ash before you reach me. Because for the first time, I understood something. She wasn't just dangerous. She was monstrous. And now, I wasn't afraid of monsters anymore. The morning after contractors backed off felt unreal. Not peaceful, not victorious, just hollow, like a battlefield after the smoke clears, before you notice a body still lying on the ground. I sat on the kitchen floor again, back against the wall, knees pulled close. The silence in the house felt louder than a scream. Melanie tried to burn me alive. It wasn't metaphor anymore. It wasn't overreaction. It wasn't paranoia. It was fact. And the thought spun in my head like a storm I couldn't stop. She won't stop until one of us is gone. Then, a sound broke the silence. A faint ding. A text. With shaking hands, I picked up my phone. Unknown number. Again. But this message wasn't like the others. It wasn't a threat, or a warning, or a confession. It was worse. She's not working alone. My heartbeat stumbled. Another message followed. Someone bigger is helping her. Someone inside your neighborhood. My stomach knotted violently. A third message. If you want to live, start watching everyone. Then, she'll reach you even from jail. And the final message came like a blade between ribs. The person helping her already knows your routine. A cold shiver crawled down my spine. I whispered, who are you? But there was no reply. Just those 5 messages. 5 reasons my world tilted sideways. When I stepped outside to breathe, Cedar Grove no longer felt warm. It felt hostile. The same houses, the same trim lawns, the same white fences. But beneath that perfect suburban skin, something had changed. People watched me differently. Not with sympathy like before. Not with curiosity. Something sharper. Some eyes followed me too long. Some glances dropped when I met them. Some doors shut too quickly. Like people hiding guilt behind them. Like someone in this neighborhood was hiding a much deeper secret. It hit me then. Melanie had supporters. Silent ones. Protected ones. Powerful ones. People who liked the way she controlled this place. People who benefited from her power. People who saw me as a threat. And one of them was helping her now. Even though she was in custody. Even though she should have been powerless. She still wasn't. Around noon, Sheriff Diaz came to check on me. Morning, Ava, he said carefully. You holding up? I forced a nod. He handed me a folder. We ran through Melanie's call from jail. Thought you should see the log. I opened it. My jaw clenched. She made 4 calls immediately after being processed. All to the same number. It wasn't Riley's number. Not her lawyers. Not anyone from her family. The name on the file made my blood turn cold. Marvin Layton, president of Cedar Grove HOA. I blinked. Once. Twice. No. I whispered. He retired last year. He moved to Florida. Diaz shook his head slowly. No, Ava. He didn't move. He's been here the whole time. What? He lives in the big teal house on Alder Lane. The one with the 3-car garage. My breath caught. The house with the motion lights. The one nobody ever saw anyone go in or out of. The one everyone said was just a vacation property. He's been running things from the shadows, Diaz said, and Melanie was his enforcer. I felt cold from the inside out. This man, I whispered, is Dangerous. Diaz exhaled. He's smart, connected, wealthy, loves control. Perfect. Another tyrant. Another puppet master. Another enemy. Diaz lowered his voice. And Ava is furious as losing power. After the sheriff left, I stood on my porch staring at Alder Lane. The teal house stared back. Perfect lawn. Closed blinds. No car in the driveway. But someone was inside, watching. Then, a movement. One blind tilted slightly. Just enough for someone to look out. And I knew instantly. He already knew I knew. He was waiting. Maybe listening. Maybe planning. My fingers curled into fists. Another text buzzed. Same unknown number. Here's the one who created Melanie. My chest tightened. Another buzz. And he wants what you built. Then, he sees your engineering as a threat. A breath caught in my throat. He's trying to take the solar system. I whispered to myself. The final message came seconds later. He wants it. He wants you. And he'll come at night. I stopped breathing for a moment, the way fear does when it becomes too heavy. At 4:12 p.m., a knock came at my door. Soft, gentle, but my nerves were strung tight like wires. When I opened it, a familiar face stood there. Mrs. Harris, my quiet, sweet neighbor in her 60s, her eyes full of fear. Ava, can I come in? I let her. She wrung her hands, her breath shaky. I didn't know how bad it was, she whispered. I didn't know she went that far. I sat beside her. What's wrong? I asked softly. She hesitated. Then tears filled her eyes. I think my husband has been helping them. My stomach twisted. Helping who? I asked gently. She swallowed. Melanie. And that man, Layton. I froze. Mrs. Harris continued. I overheard him last night, on the phone, saying that Ava Mitchell needs to be handled, that they need to finish what was started. My heart raced painfully. No. Another ally, another person involved. How many people are helping them? I whispered. Mrs. Harris shook as she spoke. He said, there are 6. 6. 6 people in Cedar Grove secretly working with Melanie and Layton. 6 people who hated me, watched me, wanted me gone. People who lived on this street. People who smiled at me. People who pretended to be friendly. My knees weakened. Mrs. Harris grabbed my hand. Ava, I'm scared. I think they are planning something tonight. A cold panic washed through me. Tonight? I whispered. She nodded, crying quietly. Yes, I heard them say. Tonight we see how much he can withstand. My stomach twisted painfully. My throat tightened. My hands trembled. Because this wasn't just harassment anymore. Not sabotage. Not threats. Not fake documents. Not contractors. This was an organized attack. A coordinated plan. And it wasn't coming someday. It was coming tonight. For a moment, fear pressed down on me so hard it felt like drowning. 6 people. 6 unknown enemies. 1 mastermind. 1 vengeful woman in jail who still wanted me dead. And me? Just me. Just a grieving widow with a solar system and a notebook full of Jason's ideas. But then something inside me shifted. Slowly, deeply, a heat rising in my chest. Not panic, not rage. Something clearer, sharper, determined, resolved. I stood up, wiped my tears, looked at Mrs. Harris and said, then I don't have time to be scared. She stared at me. Ava, what are you going to do? My jaw tightened. I picked up Jason's notebook from the table. I'm going to build something, I whispered. Something that will stop them. Something that will protect this house. A long breath. And something that will expose every single one of them. My voice became steel. Tonight, they walk into a trap. Night came faster than I expected. The sun dipped behind the houses, the sky turned bruised purple, and the wind carried a cold warning that made the hairs on my arms rise. Something was coming. Something organized. Something deliberate. Something meant to break me. But they had no idea who they were walking toward. Not anymore. By 7:55 p.m., I finished building my first large-scale defense mechanism in Jason's workshop. It wasn't a weapon. Not illegal. Not harmful. Just engineered intelligence. A system that recorded everything in real time and triggered responses without my hand touching anything. I named it Sentry 01, a hybrid design based on Jason's old failsafe sketches. It included a ring of motion pressure plates hidden under mulch around the backyard A light burst array, non-harmful but extremely disorienting, a multi-angle camera capture system A sound-triggered alert module A direct feed to the sheriff's office through an automated call signal and a voice deterrent Jason once used on stray raccoons, but modified. If anyone stepped into the yard tonight, Sentry 01 would activate instantly, and the neighborhood would hear everything. I stood in the darkness, hands on my hips, breathing heavily as a final module blinked online. Jason's handwriting was still on the inside of the case. System protect more than walls. They protect hearts. My eyes watered. Thank you, I whispered. Then I shut the box and moved, because the wolves were already circling. At 9:14 p.m., I heard it. A faint crunch. Not a footstep. Not a branch. A slow, deliberate push through dead leaves. Someone was testing the perimeter. My blood froze. Another crunch, this time on the opposite side of the yard. 2 people. Then another sound, deeper, heavier. 3. 3 on the lawn, which meant the others were acting from the street. 6 in total. Just like Mrs. Harris warned me. They were here. I stepped onto my porch, staying in the shadows. My heart thudded painfully, but my face was calm. I listened. A low whisper drifted through the breeze. Cut the cameras first. Another voice whispered back. She'll hear us. Keep quiet. No, no, a third voice said. She's scared. I doubt she even knows we're here. A slow, cold anger replaced a fear in my chest. Scared? I used to be, but not tonight. I waited until one of them came closer, just close enough that I could hear the zipper on their tool bag. Then quietly, I flipped the Sentry 01 activation switch on my phone. A soft chime sounded, and the trap was set. At 9:27 p.m., one of the men stepped onto the mulch near my back fence. The pressure plate went off. Click. A microsecond later, bang. A blinding light bows from behind the bushes like a silent explosion. White, sharp, instant. The intruder screamed. AUJ, what the hell? 3 more lights detonated around him, flashing in rotating patterns. Harmless, but totally disorienting. Then Sentry 01's voice deterrent activated. Jason's voice, modified, deeper, automated. Unauthorized entry detected. Step away from the property immediately. Every attacker froze. One stumbled backward, tripping over a lawn chair. Another hissed. What the, did she just? A 5th whisper. She set up defenses. A 6th. Abort. She's awake. I stepped out of the shadows, flicking on the porch light. Of course I'm awake. They all turned. Some with masks. Some without. All caught in the open by the cameras. I held my phone up. The screen showed the recording in progress. You chose the wrong house, I said quietly. Then I saw him. The last man standing near the fence. He stepped forward, lowered his mask, and my breath left my lungs. Mr. Harris, Mrs. Harris' husband, the man who offered to help fix my sprinklers, the man who baked cookies for the block party, the man who waved at me every morning. He stared at me, stone-faced. You should have just removed the panels, he said coldly. My chest tightened painfully. You were helping Melanie. I whispered. He didn't flinch. I've been helping Leighton for years. Melanie was just a face. I stepped back. But your wife doesn't know anything, he snapped. She's weak. She talks too much. I froze. He continued walking toward me. Steady. Controlled. Scary. You're meddling in something bigger than a solar panel. Ava, you think this is about electricity? He laughed darkly. No, this is about power. Control. Order. My spine chilled. Jason warned me once. People obsessed with control always escalate. He was right. Mr. Harris took another step toward me. Don't come closer, I warned. He smirked. You think a few lights will stop us? No, I said. The lights were just the beginning. He froze. I tapped the screen. And Sentry 01 activated Phase 2. Shriek. A high-pitched siren blasted across the yard. Not loud enough to damage ears, but sharp enough to disorient anyone within 20 feet. The men screamed, covering their ears. Mr. Harris stumbled. And the system auto-dialed Sheriff Diaz. 911 automatic alert triggered. Break-in detected. Exactly as designed. I backed up onto the porch. You picked the wrong engineer, I said quietly. Mr. Harris staggered. You little. But footsteps thundered behind him. Doors slammed open across the street. People rushed out. Flashlights turned on. Voices shouted. What's going on? Is someone in Ava's backyard? Call the sheriff. They are breaking in. Record everything. Phones were aimed. Lights pointed. Every neighbor became a witness. Mr. Harris cursed under his breath. Idiots. We're exposed. His team scattered, trying to escape, but the cameras had already captured their faces, their movements, their footprints, everything. He turned back to me with furious eyes. This isn't over. I stepped forward. No, I said. It's over for you. 3 patrol cars screeched to a stop. Sheriff Diaz rushed through the gate, hand on his weapon. Hands up. Now. 5 intruders immediately complied. But Mr. Harris, he tried to run. Diaz tackled him to the ground. Handcuffs clicked. Screams echoed. The neighborhood watched in shock and horror as all 6 attackers were arrested. As they were being lined up against the patrol cars, Mr. Harris glared at me through the flashing lights. You think this is Melanie? He he spat. A cold smile crossed his face. She was nothing. A puppet. A distraction. My stomach twisted. What are you talking about? He leaned forward as Diaz pushed him into the car. She didn't start this. He did. Who? Layton. Mr. Harris laughed. No. He stared at me with a smile that chilled every bone in my body. Melanie has a benefactor. Someone who wants your entire system. Someone who wants you. And is 10 times worse than Layton. My heart dropped. He'll come for you, Harris whispered as the door closed. And he won't need 6 men. Just one. The sheriff slammed the door. The car drove away. But the damage was done. Because standing alone on my porch, breathing shakily, I understood. This wasn't a war between me and Melanie anymore. This was something bigger, darker, more dangerous than I ever imagined. And tonight, I made powerful enemies. The night after the arrest, I barely slept. Not because of fear, but because of the silence. The silence felt wrong. Too clean, too empty, too intentional. Like the quiet right before a storm hits the shore. I sat on my living room floor, wrapped in a blanket Jason once bought, staring at the dark windows. My eyes burned. My muscles ached. Everything felt heavy. But my mind wouldn't stop replaying Mr. Harris's final words. She is a benefactor. He wants your system. He wants you. And worse, he's 10 times worse than Layton. Who would want my system? Who would want me? What made my solar field so important? Jason's technology wasn't ordinary. I knew that. He designed microgrid stability systems years before companies even understood them. But someone wanting it badly enough to sabotage, forge documents, hire contractors, and send 6 men after me? This wasn't about HOA power anymore. This was something else. Something bigger. Much bigger. At 6:03 a.m., my phone buzzed. I jolted awake on the couch, heart racing, blanket tangled around my legs. The sender was unknown, but the message wasn't a threat, or a warning, or a taunt. It was a video. My stomach tightened. I tapped it, and the clip opened with a shaky recording inside the sheriff's station holding room. A plastic bench, gray walls, dim sterile light, and Melanie, sitting there in the corner, head down, hair messy, red lipstick smeared, shaking. But she wasn't crying. She was trembling from something else. Someone stood in front of her. Only their shoes were visible in the frame, polished black Oxfords. A deep male voice spoke. You disappointed me. My skin crawled. His tone was calm. Too calm. Like a man scolding his accountant for misfiling a receipt, not speaking to a woman who tried to commit arson. Melanie's voice quivered. I tried. I swear I tried. She fought back. You failed, the man said softly. Melanie shook harder. I'm sorry. Please. I'll fix it when I get out. You won't get out, he said. Melanie gasped. The voice remained steady. You've served your purpose, and now you're a liability. My breath caught. Liability? Please, Melanie whispered. Don't leave me. Don't cut me off. A slow inhale. You were never meant to succeed, Melanie. You were meant to distract her. Huh? Me? My stomach twisted violently. I don't understand, Melanie whispered. You weren't supposed to understand, he said. Then he leaned in slightly. The camera caught just a glimpse of his chin. Sharp, clean-shaven, expensive collar, suit tailored perfectly. You did well enough. But now, stand down. Melanie sobbed. No, please, I can still. The voice turned cold. Goodbye, Melanie. He stepped away. The video ended. I didn't breathe for a full 5 seconds. Then a single new message appeared beneath the video. You're next. My heart slammed into my ribs. Not because of the threat, but because I recognized something familiar in the background of the video. A faint sound. A distant hum. A low, vibrating noise I'd heard dozens of times. A generator. A powerful one. And only one person in Cedar County used generators like that. My hands shook violently as I whispered the name. Samuel Rayner. Owner of Rayner Energy Solutions. The biggest private energy developer in the state. Jason's old rival. The man who tried to buy Jason's designs 5 years ago. The man Jason refused because he called him. A thief with a god complex. A man with more money than conscience. More power than morals. More ambition than limits. He didn't want my solar panels. He wanted Jason's system. The microgrid design. The technology he never got to patent. And if he couldn't steal it from Jason, he'd steal it from me. Or destroy it. Or destroy me. This wasn't about a neighborhood war anymore. This was corporate, predatory, calculated. The kind of game where people disappear. I sank to my knees. The phone slipped from my hand and hit the floor. I felt sick, cold, small, like the room was collapsing around me. Jason built this system with love. Melanie wasn't a villain. She was a puppet, a disposable tool. Someone he used because she was easy to manipulate, easy to inflame, easy to addict to power. Tears welled in my eyes. This whole time, I'd been fighting the wrong war. The real enemy was far bigger, far stronger, far more dangerous. I whispered into the empty kitchen. Jason, what do I do now? My hand shook so hard I grabbed the counter for balance. I couldn't fight a corporation. I couldn't fight a man with private security teams, with influence, with connections, with more money than morality. I was alone, completely alone, and for the first time since Jason died, I broke, really broke. Not a quiet cry, not a silent tremble, a full collapse. I fell to the floor and sobbed until I couldn't breathe, until my chest ached, until my eyes burned, until I couldn't lift my head. Every fear, every memory, every trauma, every moment I survived alone, slammed into me at once. It crushes you, then forces you to rebuild. Somewhere between the sobs, something inside me shifted. A spark, small, barely there, but real. A new thought emerged through the chaos. Jason wouldn't want me to run. He'd want me to think. He'd want me to outsmart. He'd want me to fight with my mind, not my fear. Not a punch, not a scream, not a threat. A design, a plan, a system, a defense even Raina couldn't break. I wiped my face, slowly stood up. My legs were weak, but my resolve wasn't. I whispered through clenched teeth, "You picked the wrong widow, Samuel." Then I grabbed Jason's notebook, flipped to the last page, a page I never fully understood before, a blueprint labeled, "Gridlock, Final Defense Protocol." Jason once told me, if anyone ever tries to steal this system, this is how you stop them. My hands trembled as I traced the lines, the symbols, the circuits, the logic. It wasn't a physical defense. It wasn't a weapon. It was something far more powerful. A system that locks a microgrid permanently unless the true owner resets it. A safeguard that makes stolen tech worthless. A dead man switch. Not fear. Not relief. Something sharper. Purpose. Because now I had a plan. A real plan. And it wasn't just to defend. It was to burn Samuel's entire scheme to ashes. As I began gathering tools from the workshop, my phone buzzed again. Another unknown message. This one only 2 words. "Is coming." My jaw clenched. Good. Let him. Because this time, I wasn't the one walking into a trap. He was. Still. Silent. Too calm. The kind of calm that comes right before fate makes its final move. I stood in Jason's old workshop tightening the last bolt on the Gridlock core module, the heart of his ultimate failsafe. My hands were steady. My breath even. For the first time in weeks. I wasn't scared. I was ready. But then, thud, a heavy sound on the front porch. Footsteps. Measured. Confident. Unhurried. Not the frantic footsteps of thugs. Not the nervous pacing of angry neighbors. Someone with power. Someone who expected obedience. I moved silently to the doorway of the workshop, staying in the shadows. Thud, thud, thud. 3 slow knocks. They announced themselves like kings. I swallowed hard, then stepped out of the workshop and walked toward the front door. My heart wasn't racing anymore, just burning with something fierce. This was it, the final confrontation. I opened the door. Samuel Rayner stood on my porch. Tall, immaculate, expensive suit, hair perfectly combed, eyes sharp as razors. He looked like a CEO walking into a board meeting, not a criminal standing on a doorstep. "Ava Mitchell," he said softly, "I've been waiting to meet you." I didn't respond. He stepped closer, hands behind his back, a gesture of dominance. "I'm sorry for the chaos you experienced. Melanie was an overeager asset. Asset, not ally, not friend. Asset. She nearly killed me," I whispered. Samuel nodded casually. "Yes." A chill rolled through me. "She served her purpose," he continued. "Now we move to the real matter." His eyes glinted. "Jason's system." My grip tightened around the doorknob. "You're not getting it." He chuckled gently, like I was a child refusing vegetables. "You don't have a choice, Ava. I'm offering you a clean option." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a folder. Inside, a contracte non-disclosure agreement, a financial settlement, transfer of ownership forms, and a buyout check for $12 million. And all you have to do is hand over the system. I stared at him, at his calm face, at his arrogance, at the confidence of a man who'd always gotten what he wanted. Then I spoke quietly. "No." He blinked, surprised. "No. No." His smile faded slightly. "You don't understand, Ava," he said softly. "I'm not asking." "Neither am I." His expression darkened. Something cold slipped into his eyes. "I know what your husband built. I've spent years trying to replicate his work. Years. And when I couldn't, I took other routes. I swallowed. You killed projects. You forced people out. You ruined careers. Jason warned me about you." He smirked. "I tried to buy his system legitimately. He refused. So I created alternatives. Melanie, Leighton, others. But this ends tonight. My heart beat once, slow and heavy. Then he said the word that pushed me over the edge. You're one woman. And whispered, you should step back. He raised an eyebrow, amused. Oh, what? I lifted the gridlock remote, small and simple. This. I pressed a button. A soft chime sounded. The lights on the panels flickered, once. Then a deep, resonant hum rolled through the ground. Gridlock had awakened. Samuel frowned. What did you just do? I took a step closer. Gridlock is Jason's final protocol. Samuel's jaw clenched. It cannot be duplicated. It cannot be stolen. It cannot be reverse engineered. His eyes hardened with real anger now. He stepped forward, towering over me. You don't know what you've done, he hissed. Yes, I said quietly. I protected his legacy. His breathing deepened. You idiot! You just destroyed technology worth billions. I know. You destroyed everything. Yes. You could have been rich. I don't want your money. He paused. His voice dropped. You think this ends me? No, I whispered. It ends you from taking anything else. His jaw twitched. He stepped closer, voice low. Do you know what happens now? Yes. And you're not afraid. I met his eyes. No. A long, tense silence. Then he inhaled sharply and stepped back. You will regret this, he said, voice like ice. I will tear you apart in court, in media, in every way that matters. I smiled slightly. You can't. And why is that? I lifted my phone. It's all recorded. Every confession, every threat, every connection to Melanie, every attack, every sabotage attempt, every fake order. His face finally cracked. You recorded? Yes, I whispered. And the sheriff already has it. A slow realization washed over him. He'd been outplayed by a grieving widow. Samuel took one shaky breath, then turned sharply toward his Escalade. This isn't over, he spat. Yes, I said softly. It is. He slammed the car door. The Escalade roared to life. And Samuel Rayner drove away, not victorious, not powerful, but exposed. Finished. The next morning, news broke everywhere. Rayner Energy CEO under criminal investigation. Melanie Hartwell implicated in corporate sabotage scheme. Cedar Grove residents face charges in coordinated attack. The sheriff arrived at my house with a gentle nod. It's over, Ava, he said. He can't touch you anymore. I finally breathed out, a long, shaking breath I'd been holding for months. That night, I sat by the solar panels, Jason panels, with a warm blanket around me. The air was peaceful, safe, quiet, and for the first time since he died, I didn't feel alone. I whispered, I did it, Jason. Your system is safe. Your work lives on. I protected what you built. A breeze brushed my cheek, soft, warm, almost like a touch, and I smiled through tears, not of grief, but of victory, of survival, of strength I never knew I had. This war was over. I stood, looked at the glowing solar field, and whispered into the night, rest now. I've got it from here. And for the first time, I felt like he heard me.